Come closer. Let me tell you a story. That's right, closer still. This is the story of a young girl and a big bad wolf. Oh, so you think you've heard this one before? No, I assure you haven't. You see, this is the story of the big bad wolf. Let us begin. Once upon a time there was a little village girl called Laurie. Nothing. Becca called again. Laurie. Laurie looked over towards her friend. Laurie he's. Chantelle, the cheery voice called up the stairs. Red momentarily looked up from her computer, ignored the voice, and continued to type. Laurie, he's here. Hans is here. Laurie's face. Chantelle, the voice called again. Typing furiously, Red continued to write. Laurie's face did not change. I know, she. Red, the voice yelled. What? Red snapped, slamming her laptop closed and stomping down the stairs. Oh, there you are. How's the story going? Fine, replied Red curtly, scowling at her stepmother. Now I need you to run an errand for me, Red's stepmother said, looking over her spectacles at the teenager. And I don't want to hear any excuses, she added, preempting the response. I'm busy, Red said sharply. I said no excuses, unless you want me to confiscate that laptop of yours. Red sighed. Fine, Susan. What do you want? I need you to take this basket of mushrooms over to Grandma's. You know I'd normally do it, but the bus drivers are on strike, and it's much too far for me to walk with my bad leg and all that. Red brightened slightly. She did love seeing her Grandma, even if it did involve a schlep through the woods. Anything for Grandma. Okay, Red replied, grabbing the basket from her stepmother and her bright red hoodie from the coat rack. And remember, Susan started to say. Yes, stay left on the fork at the path. I know, Red completed the sentence, rolling her eyes, tutting and slamming the door behind her as she left the house. And don't eat the mushrooms, Susan yelled after her. Red left the house, a normal semi-detached house on the edge of the New Forest in southern England. Strolling briskly away, clutching the basket of mushrooms, she paused momentarily, putting up her hood. It had suddenly turned quite chilly. Dark clouds gathered in the sky. Why do I have to run these stupid errands? Red chundered to herself as she marched down the street. Within a few minutes she was at the path that led to the woods. Red glanced down at the basket. The mushrooms sure looked delicious, both the red ones and the blue ones. Surely Grandma wouldn't miss one, Red mused. And with that thought she reached down and carefully plucked a red mushroom from the basket and popped it into her mouth. Mmm, she said aloud as the mushroom melted on her tongue, sweet and buttery. She continued down the path, subconsciously popping another couple of mushrooms into her mouth as she went, until after a few more minutes she reached the fork. Stay left at the fork, Red giggled to herself, feeling a little cheerier. But the right-hand fork looked so inviting today. Where the left path to Grandma's house looked cold and grey, the right seemed sunny and bright. Red shrugged, popped another mushroom into her mouth, and turned right. As Red skipped down the trail, the colours became even brighter. Dull greens became vivid and cartoon-like. The sky, once a dull grey, shone bright blue, and the clouds hung like giant balls of cotton wool. Morning, Red, a cheerful voice rang out. Red looked up. Fuck me, a talking squirrel, she said aghast. Only the words didn't come out like that. What came from Red's mouth was as follows. Talking squirrel? How peculiar. Red rounded the corner to find herself somewhere quite unfamiliar. Welcome to Storybook Woods, Red, the squirrel chirped, before turning to scatter up the tree. Red giggled, and stooped down to pluck one of the pale yellow flowers. Primroses. How beautiful, she said aloud. Elsewhere, on the far eastern edge of Storybook Woods, a large, sinister-looking reddish-brown eye opened, adjusting to the light. Curious, mumbled the voice. A voice that wouldn't have been out of place, projecting from a stage in the West End. The wolf looked down at its claws and idly picked at its teeth, its bright white coat shimmering in the light from the cartoon sun. My, what big teeth I have, it mused sinisterly, before springing to its haunches and sniffing the air. Red looked around. Where was she? And where was the squirrel? And why was it talking? So many questions. The vivid cartoon colours burned Red's eyes. Her head was starting to hurt. Confused, she headed down the only path she could see. In her head she heard a ringing voice. Curious, it echoed, dark and sinister. Red entered the glen, rolling hills bordering on both sides. Impossible, she thought to herself. Ah, Red, over here! The voice snapped her back. She looked round to find the source of it, finally focused on the small, odd-looking man with the green moustache. Standing no more than 4 feet tall, the officious-looking gentleman bowed theatrically, his orange bowler hat nearly falling from his head as he did so. Red looked closer and saw the man's moustache was actually made up from 2 fat green caterpillars. Mayor Tumbledown, at your service, the man introduced himself. Now, we don't have much time. No, we don't. We must get moving. But first, I must know what you brought with you, the mayor said hurriedly to Red. Red looked down at the strange little man, confused. I'm sorry, Mayor Tumbledown. I can't say that I follow. Red, we weren't expecting you. It's obviously an honour that you are here, the mayor replied, bowing again. But it's important to know what you brought. I brought mushrooms, Red replied, looking down at the basket and then back at the mayor in confusion. The basket was gone. Mayor Tumbledown rolled his eyes. Oh, my dear girl, we must hurry. We have work, you know. Lead the way. The way where? Red asked quizzically. Oh, only you can decide that, my dear. We just follow. Now lead on, the mayor replied. Confused, Red did as asked. Leaving the glen with the strange little mare trotting behind her, she turned the corner to Grandma's house. Peeking from the window, Willow spied the two visitors approaching the cottage, and hid. Willow! Willow! Shouted Mayor Tumbledown. There's no use hiding. Can't you see we have an esteemed guest? As Willow peeked from the window, Red caught the slightest glimpse of her. A small, mousy-looking girl. In fact, very mousy-looking, with a long nose, whiskers, and big front teeth. She was even nibbling on a piece of cheese. Now look here, Red said. I do not know what is happening, but someone had better explain it to me before I become very annoyed. Oh, Red, I'm sorry, this is all my fault, Mayor Tumbledown stammered, slumping to the floor and beginning to sob. You see, we simply weren't expecting you, and such an important guest, we were not prepared in the slightest. Squeak, said Willow, agreeing. Well, I'm sorry, Red replied curtly, but to be quite frank, I'm beginning to lose my patience. I have such a headache that I'm talking to a man with caterpillars for a moustache and a mouse girl. Squeak, said Willow. Yes, I understand, replied the mayor. Come inside the house, I'll try to explain it the best I can. Red followed Mayor Tumbledown through the small red door of the cottage to join Willow inside. The mayor gestured for Red to sit down, and Willow scuttled off, returning with a pot of tea. As the three sat down and started to sip the sweet tea, Mayor Tumbledown began his explanation. You see, here at Storybook Woods, the mayor started to explain. Storybook Woods? Red interrupted. Yes, that's right. Well, here at Storybook Woods we often have guests. We cannot guide them. In fact, they must guide us. And they have an obstacle to overcome. Do you see? Not really, snapped Red, becoming frustrated. Well, Red, you're a guest. An important one at that. You must travel through the woods and guide us out, if you see fit. Then you must confront your nemesis. And how exactly do I guide you out? Red asked. My dear girl, you simply escort us to the exit and tell us to be gone, the mayor replied. Here, he said, grabbing a scrap of paper. We are here at Grandma's house. He continued, scrawling on the paper. Grandma's house, Red interrupted again. I was just on my way to Grandma's house, and I can assure you that this is not it, she finished. Yes, well, this is what we call Grandma's house, the mayor continued. And the exits are here and here, he added, swiftly drawing a crude map. When you get us to the exit, just say our name and be gone. So I would take you to the exit and say, Mayor Tumbledown, be gone. Exactly, the mayor said, beaming. My nemesis? Well, the thing is, my dear girl. Abruptly, a loud howl cut through the air, stopping the conversation in its track. Oh no, Mayor Tumbledown said, his face turning ashen. The caterpillars flew from his lip and scuttled into a pile of books messily spread under the bookcase. Squeak, said Willow. You must arm yourself, Red, and get us to safety. Squeak, said Willow, who then disappeared behind the sofa, rummaging through a pile of items. The wolf howled as it sniffed the air. My, so many, it mused to itself. No hurry today, it purred as it stalked its way south towards the meadow, where Dermot O'Shaughnessy was picking the juicy red apples from the tree to make his renowned cider. Well, what have we here? Dermot said, as the huge shape of the wolf strolled laconically into view. Well, aren't you a big fellow? The wolf said lazily, as it looked Dermot up and down. It was true, Dermot stood almost 7 feet tall. His bright, curly red hair framed a face full of freckles. You'd better not be after any trouble, little doggy, Dermot said to the wolf. Trouble? The wolf said teasingly. I think a little doggy like me knows better than to pick a fight with a gentleman your size, it added. The wolf raised its nose to the wind and sniffed again. Ah, it said. More. Come closer, my pretty, it added authoritatively. The bushes rustled as Jack and Jill emerged from the adjacent meadow. More like it, the wolf growled in a sinister tone, its eyes flashing with excitement. Now, I think you'd better be going on your way now, Dermot said, his hand reaching towards the heavy wooden panking pole he carried with him. The wolf said idly, again picking at his teeth with his massive claw. You know what? Actually, I think I'll... Slay! The wolf's eyes flashed red as it sped towards Dermot. Leaping, it slashed down towards the huge man's throat with its razor-sharp claws, slicing Dermot's jugular with a swift cut. Vivid, bright red blood sprayed across the peaceful surround of Storybook Woods, and Dermot fell to the floor. The wolf turned towards Jack and Jill, the hunger in its eyes visible and terrifying. Screaming, Jack and Jill turned and ran, straight into each other. Bump! Jack fell down and bumped his crown, then Jill came tumbling after. The wolf was on them in a flash, its huge teeth ripping and tearing the flesh around Jack's neck, almost severing his head from his shoulders. Jill started to sit up, just as the wolf leapt to her with all 4 feet, the razor claws sinking into her abdomen. Jill's intestines came spilling out like bright red sausages. The wolf casually bent down, plucking the intestines from Jill and feasting on them to satisfy its ravenous hunger. It sniffed the air again and vanished into the undergrowth. "Sausages," Red said suddenly, her eyes wide. "I'm sorry, my dear," Mayor Tumbledown started to say, before he was interrupted by a gentle rapping at the door to the cottage. The 3 occupants of Grandma's house looked at each other. Again the rap at the door, this time a little louder. Come out, wherever you are," the theatrical voice came from the other side of the door. On the 3rd, even louder rap, the door opened, and the residents of the cottage saw the terrifying shape of their tormentor. The huge bulk of the wolf, its white fur stained with blood, filled the doorway. "Squeak!" said Willow. The wolf locked eyes with Red. "You!" it growled. And with those words, it sprang at the mayor, clutching the strange little man in its powerful forearms and biting into his shoulder. Willow ran, heading for the door. Dropping the mare like a rag doll, the wolf turned swiftly, grabbing Willow in its mouth and ragging her from side to side before flinging her against the bookcase. "Squeak!" Willow started to say as the wolf devoured her head with one clean bite. The 2 fat green caterpillars broke from the pile of books on the floor and quickly scuttled out of the window. Red sprinted for the door, grabbing the slingshot that Willow had unearthed in her rummagings as she did so. The wolf swiped at Red, but she was too fast. She reached the door and heard the dying words of Mayor Tumbledown echo behind her as she slammed it shut and headed towards the glen. "Remember, Red, it comes from within," the words echoed as she left the carnage at Grandma's house behind. The wolf paused momentarily to grab a bundle of clothes, then set off in pursuit. Reaching the glen, Red paused for breath. She had to focus. What comes from within, she wondered as she slumped to the floor. "Hi, Red," the chirpy voice rang out. Red looked up towards the tree. "Squirrel, my furry friend," she said, relaxing slightly. "You can do it, Red," the squirrel said cheerily before scampering off. "I can do it," Red thought, jumping to her feet just as the wolf emerged from Grandma's house towards her, his nostrils flaring with hatred. Energised, Red sprang at the wolf, taking it by surprise. She landed a blow straight on the wolf's snout. It howled in anger. Red rolled away. Springing to her feet, she began to sprint away from the glen, unleashing a stone from the slingshot which caught the wolf directly between the eyes. The wolf howled again, its head stinging from the blow. It watched, disorientated, as Red slipped away from the glen toward the bridge to the dell. As Red reached the bridge, she noticed the woods change. The bright cartoon-like colours that had been there previously gave way, engulfed by a suffocating darkness. Perfect, Red thought, as if this place wasn't creepy enough. She stopped momentarily, checking to see if the wolf was following. It seemed to be all clear. Red cautiously crept over the bridge towards the menacing darkness of the dell. A chill came in the air as she entered the shady dell. She peeked round the undergrowth to see a young girl dressed in a smart white frock, carrying a shepherd's crook, frantically looking around. "Have you seen them? Have you seen them?" the hurried voice asked as Red approached. "Seen what exactly?" Red inquired. "My sheep, silly," the stranger giggled. "They were here, then there was all that commotion, and they ran away. I simply don't know where to find them." "Hold that thought," Red said quickly as she sped off, leaving the confused girl behind her. Red concentrated as she left the dell. If she remembered the crude sketch that Mayor Tumbledown had drawn correctly, then one of the exits should be right round the corner. Exhausted, Red stumbled from the dell and fell straight over a tuft of grass, knocking the girl sitting on it to the floor. Red sat on the dark grass looking up at the girl and the strange tattooed boy sitting beside her. "Oh gosh," she said to no one in particular, and slowly got to her feet. Meanwhile, in the semi-detached house on the edge of the New Forest, Susan was just about to sit down when the phone rang. She answered it with a cheery "Hello." "Susan, it's Constance," the voice on the line said. "I was expecting you an hour ago with my mushrooms. What's going on?" "I sent Chantelle. You see, my leg is—" "You sent my granddaughter?" The curt voice on the other end of the phone cut Susan off mid-sentence. "And when was this?" Constance asked. "Well, she left here around about 10. "Well, she has not arrived. Susan, you better get over here, and pray that nothing has happened to her." "I'm sure she'll be—" Susan started to reply. "Now, Susan," Constance snapped, and the line went dead. Back at the glen, the wolf slowly got to its feet, rubbing its head with its massive paw. It mopped the blood dripping from between its eyes. "Damn girl. When I find her, I'll huff and I'll puff," it snarled. But first, I think I'll take care of some more of her friends," it chuckled before springing northwards from the glen. Mary had forgotten where she was going. She wandered towards the path to the gingerbread house, then quite suddenly turned around and headed the other way. bumping straight into the bulk of the wolf as she did so. Stumbling backwards, she fell to the floor. She can't save you, no, the wolf said mockingly as it rested its giant clawed foot on Mary's fragile chest. She can try, my dear, but she's not strong enough. You see, I know her. I know her more than you can imagine. The more I do this, the wolf continued, pressing down his huge hairy foot, starting to crack Mary's ribs. The more I hurt you, the stronger I become, finished the wolf as it stamped down his foot onto Mary's ribcage, shattering her ribs and sending them penetrating into her heart. Perhaps you should stick to the gardening, the wolf said dismissively as Mary's confused face looked at it. Red clutched her chest, a sharp pain shot through it. Her eyes blazed with a new determination. The girl she had knocked off the tuft of grass dusted down her frock. That's the second scare I've had today, she scolded, and I've already lost my curds. She reached her hand towards Red. Hello, Red. I'm Miss Muffet, Red finished. Yes, Miss Muffet beamed. And this is, let me guess, Spider? The gangly boy with the large spider's web tattooed on his face smiled. Yes, indeed, said Miss Muffet. Now, I don't know what your intentions are, Red, but if I could suggest... I'm getting you out of here, Red said quickly. I believe this is the way. Follow me, she finished, and darted off with Miss Muffet and Spider following behind. They quickly reached the exit from Storybook Woods. Thank you, Red, Miss Muffet said. Are you beginning to understand? I think so, Red replied. This is Storybook Woods, and you are all characters. You've all been written. Or told, Miss Muffet replied. Yes, I remember now. Mayor Tumbledown, from the stories my father used to tell me. I'd almost forgotten. But my nemesis, the wolf, it seemed to know me, Red continued. Look within you, Red, Miss Muffet replied. I can say no more. Now, if you please? Oh yes, sorry. Miss Muffet, begone. Spider, begone, Red said deliberately. As the words left her mouth, both Spider and Miss Muffet began to fade. As they did so, an aura washed over Red, a new strength. Energised, Red ran back to the dell to find the young girl still frantically searching the area. Quick, follow me, Red yelled as she entered the dell. Oh, of course, the girl replied, scuttling after Red. Reaching the exit, Red quickly said, Bo Peep, begone. Thank you, Red, Bo Peep said as she began to fade. And here, you might need this, she added, dropping a pitchfork to the floor in front of Red before disappearing. The wolf lifted its huge foot from the body of Mary. Felt slightly disappointed the girl hadn't put up more of a fight, to die so easily before she got a good look at the jaws that bite. It ran down the path towards a gingerbread house seeking more blood, smashing the small leg-shaped fellow in its way to the floor, breaking him into pieces. The wolf sniffed again. It howled in frustration. The sense had weakened. It knew Red had cheated it of its prey. It mused. I see you have worked out the secret, young lady. Well, two can play at that game, it growled to itself. You see, Red, if there's a storyteller in you, then there's a storyteller in me. Now, the wolf concentrated hard. Once upon a time, it almost chanted to itself. Storybook Woods shook. The sky flashed brightly. Purple and violet haze filled the air. A smell of fresh ink permeated the wolf's nostrils. It smiled a toothy grin, slipping the bonnet it had taken from Grandma's house onto its head as a strange portal opened in front of it. The two travellers stepped through, bemused by the sight that confronted them. Well, hello, the wolf said menacingly. Okay, Laurie, good luck, Susie smiled, or at least tried to. Deke and Susie ran towards town, leaving Camp Happy Trails in the distance. As they ran, a strange purple and violet haze started to surround them. The sky became brighter, almost cartoon-like, as they stumbled forward from the dirt road onto a soft grass clearing. Well, hello, the sinister voice rang through the air as their eyes adjusted to the light. Deke stopped dead as the claws of the massive paw dug into his throat. What the? He gurgled, the bright red blood frothing from his mouth as the wolf threw him to one side and turned to Susie. Out of the frying pan, into the fire, so to speak, the wolf purred. Nice doggy, would you like to have some sweets? Susie said nervously, backing away from the wolf. No, I think not, the wolf replied, before letting out an earth-shattering growl. Susie fainted. What's all this commotion? Old Mother Hubbard asked as she approached the scene, a bemused and still slightly drunk Michael and Jenny Wilson trailing behind her. She looked down at Susie, who started to come round. Susie sat up and screamed at the top of her voice. Oh, hush now, Mother Hubbard said soothingly to Susie. It's just a harmless old woman. Are you joking? Susie screamed. Look at the size of its big teeth. All the better to... Well, you get the point, the wolf said, ripping off Grandma's bonnet. Meanwhile, Back on the edge of the New Forest, Susan arrived at her mother-in-law's house and rang the doorbell. The door opened swiftly, as if Constance was waiting right behind it. Constance's face dropped as she saw what Susan was holding. Susan staggered into Constance's cottage, struggling with the weight of her lifeless stepdaughter's body as she carried in her arms. "The study," Constance said. "Hurry!" Susan carefully placed Red's body down on the leather-topped desk in the study, and Constance lifted Red's eyelids to reveal blank eyes. "Fetch the books. I'll prepare the tincture," Constance ordered. Red picked up the pitchfork as the purple and violet mist fell around Storybook Woods. The chanting words, "Once upon a time," echoed around her in a familiar, sinister tone. Red's eyes darted around as she heard a very distinctive voice. "Jedediah Jackson, what on earth is going on?" The voice echoed through the woods. Red pinpointed the source and ran towards it, bursting from the darkness back into the cartoon light. "Martha! Jed!" Red yelled as she approached the elderly couple. "Well, hi, sweetie," Martha said warmly. "I have not the darndest clue what's happening here, but I'm sure it's all this lunk's fault," she said, motioning towards Jed. "Now then, Martha," Jed began. "Look," Red said, it's not his fault. Something's happening that I can't explain. Please, just follow me." She disappeared back towards the exit. "Well, you heard the girl," Martha said. "Scoot!" As they reached the exit, Martha turned to Red, grabbing her by the upper arms. Looking her author straight in the eye, she said, "Red, why did you bring us here?" "What?" Red replied. I didn't." "Oh, sweetie, we heard you call as clear as day. Ain't that right, Jed?" Jed nodded. Red started. "I think I understand. Thank you, Martha." And with that, Red uttered, "Martha, be gone. Jed, be gone." The energy again washed over Red as she grabbed the pitchfork tightly. It was time to set the ambush. The wolf smiled menacingly. "Oh, come now, Mother. Didn't you bring my bone? Or was the cupboard bare again?" Now you stay back, you fiend," old Mother Hubbard stammered. I think not," retorted the wolf, stepping slowly closer towards Mother Hubbard. "I'm warning you," the old lady said, brandishing a dangerous-looking wooden spoon towards the wolf. "Really?" the wolf said. "Boo!" it shouted. The old lady stumbled backwards, her foot twisting in a rabbit scrape, sending her tumbling to the ground, her head cracking on a large rock. The life faded from her eyes. The wolf roared with laughter and turned slowly towards Jenny and Michael Wilson. Suddenly it stopped, its ears pricked forward as it heard the sound carrying on the wind. "Lucky, lucky, lucky," it said, wagging its clawed finger at the Wilsons, before turning and running from the clearing. "Oh, grandmother!" Red called out, tinging the tines with the pitchfork, which let out a loud metal ring. "Grandmother! Look who's been getting treats for grandmother! Come and get me, you bitch," she mumbled to herself before quickly climbing a nearby tree, her pitchfork poised, ready to strike. Suddenly the wolf burst into the clearing. She lifted her nose to the air, picking up the scent of Red fractionally too late as the girl dived from the tree above her, the prongs of the pitchfork aimed squarely at the back of the wolf's neck. The wolf's sharp instinct saved her. She darted slightly to the right as the pitchfork missed its target, instead sinking deep into the wolf's shoulder. The wolf howled in pain, her bright white fur darkening with blood as she staggered backwards away from Red. Red came again with the pitchfork, stabbing it directly towards the unsteady wolf and sinking it into her stomach. The wolf howled again, and slowly reached down to her stomach, feeling the wound. Slowly the wolf wiped the blood from the penetrating wound in her stomach onto her paw. She lifted the paw to her mouth, savouring the taste of her fresh blood on her rollicking pink tongue. Very good, Red," the she-wolf growled. "But you're not out of the woods yet," she snapped, springing quickly towards Red. Red sidestepped, just as the wolf's jaws snapped shut, catching Red's right arm and removing a large chunk of flesh. On the desk in the study, Red's body jerked with a violent convulsion. "The tincture! Hold it tight to her head," Constance commanded. "And hold her still, goddammit!" Constance opened a large leather book and began to chant the incantation. "Dara potere al narratori, mandeli la mia forza." "You can't beat me, Red," the wolf said. "You aren't strong enough." She lunged at Red with her massive claws. Red parried with the pitchfork. "You know who I am?" the wolf asked casually. "I know who you are," Red replied, spitting blood to the floor. "You're me." "Oh, I'm more than that," Red Wolf replied. "I'm your strength," she boomed, swiping at Red with her massive claw claws, slicing a wound in Red's leg. In the study, Red's body convulsed again. "We're losing her, Constance," Susan shouted. Constance chanted louder. "Dare potere al narratori, mandele la mia forza." "I am your power," Red Wolf growled, swiping again at Red, slicing her cheek with the razor claws. Again Red's body in the study jerked in convulsions. Blood began to trickle from her nose. Dare potere ai narratori, mandale la mia forza, Constance chanted. I'm all you could have been, Redwolf snapped hatefully, picking up Red's body and tossing it across the floor before stooping to hover her snarling bloody jaws inches from Red's face. Red flailed for the broken pitchfork, summoning enough strength to jam the shaft between Redwolf's teeth just as the jaws began to close. No, spat Red. You're my anger, she said, lifting her knee sharply into Redwolf's punctured abdomen. The creature fell backwards. Red advanced. You are my hatred, she said, smashing a punch into the creature's jaw. You! Red landed another blow. Ah! Again the punches rained down on the creature. My! Another punch. Failure! The final blow sent Redwolf reeling backwards to the floor, whimpering. Redwolf looked up at the girl, her body stinging in pain. You won't kill me, Red, she said. Without me, you're just a goody two-shoes. Yeah, Red replied. I ain't that good, she said, as she plunged the broken handle of the pitchfork into Redwolf's heart. Redwolf howled in pain, then her body went limp. In the study, Red's eyes shot open with a start as she began to focus. Grandma? She said weakly. Shush, child, Constance said, gently stroking Red's hair. Grandma. I beat it, Grandma. I killed the wolf. Shush, Constance said again. If only it were that simple, Constance continued. You see, my sweet child, you can't kill a wolf in Storybook Woods. Red looked at her grandma blankly. You will have weakened it for sure. It will now only hunt by the moon. But killed it? No. My God, Constance, if it gets out, said Susan worriedly. Yes, Susan, I think we all remember the 1981 incident, Constance snapped. I must make a call. Constance turned to the large gilt-framed mirror dominating the wall in her study and waved her hand. Waves began to form over the mirror, and the picture of a seemingly young woman in traditional Bavarian clothing appeared. The only thing belying the girl's age were her eyes. Eyes that had seen 1,000 stories. Gretel, Constance said, we may need your help. Again? Gretel replied in her thick German accent. Oh, Constance, you are careless. Elsewhere, in a dark basement, Evan looked down at the game board and smiled to himself as he scribbled notes in his leather-bound journal. So many stories, he thought to himself as he tidied away the pieces, turning the light off with a click.